Assalamualaikum everyone, my name is Ana Najira binti Hafi. Today my topic is about Trump's tariff and their impact on global and Malaysian supply chains. In 2025, Trump reintroduced tariffs that went as high as 24%, but after exemptions, the effective rate for Malaysia was around 17.9%. So this tariff disrupted global trade flows and forced companies to rethink supply chain strategies. Now, because Malaysia is a very open economy, with trade making up more than 130% of our GDP, we were directly exposed to this shift. So in my presentations, I will focus on three main effects. So the first one is how cost and inflation pressure increase. Second is how companies use trade division and bypass strategy. And third, what all this means for Malaysia's trade and investment opportunities. I will also share some recommendation on how Malaysia can respond. So the first effect is about higher costs and inflations. So when tariff goes up, the price of imported goods also rises. Globally, US companies felt this strongly because many of them tried to stockpile goods at first to avoid higher costs. But eventually, they had no choice but to pass the cost on to consumers. So this led to inflationary risk in the US and other markets. For Malaysia, the situation was a bit mixed because on one hand, our average tariff rate was about 14% and more than half of our exports were affected. But there was some relief because semiconductors, one of our biggest export products, were exempted. On the other hand, our manufacturers face higher costs when importing machinery and electronics components from the US, which added pressure to local production costs. Even though inflation in Malaysia is forecast at a stable 2.7% in 2025, the tariff still made it more expensive to do business. So while Malaysia wasn't hit as hard as some countries, we definitely felt the inflation squeeze in supply chains. So moving on to the second effect is trade division and bypass strategies. So because tariffs on China were very high, global firms started using what's called the China Plus One strategy. Because instead of relying fully on China, they moved some of their operation to other countries like Vietnam, Mexico, and Malaysia. So this was good news for us because export of electronics and machinery to the US increased as buyers looked for alternative. But this benefit came with challenges because some companies try to reroute Chinese goods through Malaysia just to avoid tariff. That can create a risk of us being labelled a transshipment hub, which could damage our reputations. In fact, the US paid special attention to this issue and Malaysia responded by tightening custom rules, especially on sensitive products like AI chips. On the positive side, analysts projected that our re-export could grow by almost 6% in 2025 due to this shift. So overall, trade division gave Malaysia an opportunity, but it also forced us to be more careful with compliance and regulations. So lastly, the third effect is on Malaysia's trade and investment opportunities. Interestingly, in 2024, the US overtook China as Malaysia's biggest export market. Export to the US grew by more than 23%, reaching nearly 200 billion. That shows how tariff on China indirectly benefited us. At the same time, Malaysia became a magnet for foreign direct investments, meaning, for example, attracted billions of dollars in semiconductor investment from global giants like Intel, Micron, and Infineon. So these companies shifted more of their operation here because they wanted to diversify away from China. Diplomatically, Malaysia has also been smart in balancing relationships. In August 2025, we signed a major trade deal with the US that reduced tariff on our goods to 19% and made it easier for Malaysian products to enter their market. At the same time, we deepened ties with China, which boosted its FDI in Malaysia by almost 40%. So this balancing strategy shows that Malaysia is using the tariff environment to position itself as a reliable hub in global supply chains. So to conclude this, Trump's tariff created both challenges and opportunities. The main challenges were higher costs for business and the risk of being accused as a transshipment hub. But the opportunities came in the form of stronger exports, especially to the US, and huge FDI inflows into high-value sectors like semiconductors. So what should Malaysia do? First, we should work to secure long-term tariff exemption for our critical sectors like electronics and semiconductors. Second, we need to strengthen customs compliance and digital traceability to prove that Malaysia is not being misused as a bypass route. Third, Malaysia should keep investing in digital supply chain system and logistics to support higher trade volumes. Fourth, we must diversify our export through ASEAN, RCEP, and CPTPP so we don't rely too much on the US or China. Finally, we should keep promoting high-value sectors like AI, cloud services, and semiconductors because these are the areas attracting the most global investment. So if Malaysia stay proactive and strategic, we can turn tariff shocks into long-term opportunities and secure our place as a trusted player in global supply chain. That's all for me. Thank you.